Thank you for joining me for the bonus episode of Shay's story. If you're here, you already likely listened to the abridged version of the full episode. If you'd prefer, you can also listen to the full length episode on Substack. I'm so glad Shay decided to share this part of her story with us as well. I hope you find her story as inspiring as I did. That's so interesting that you say that to accept love because that happens so many times is we find someone that's perfect for us and we push them away for whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was
Yeah.
trying to find all the reasons. Like I wasn't ready. I knew I wasn't
Right.
ready at all. I was just kind of entertaining the idea. And my therapist looked at me and he's like, "What do you have to lose?
Mhm.
You have your own place now, you know, you have your life together, your life in order. You need to be willing to accept love and not think that you're not worthy of it. Like, give yourself some grace. This is the healing part. You have to just let it go." So I took his advice because every week I'd be like, something's gonna happen. Something's not right.
Yeah.
He's gonna be a serial cheater. I don't, like all of these things. I was so ready for the worst thing to happen.
Yeah.
And it never came. I looking back and there's more similarities and parallels in our life. I could probably go on for hours,
Yeah.
but yeah, long story short, it was it was the swipe right that made
I
forever.
love
So
it. I love it. That's beautiful. Now, how long did it take for you to go from we don't want to rush into a marriage again to, you know what, we're going to get married?
6 years because I was so
Yeah.
non-committal. Like
Yeah.
it took me 2 years to move in.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, no, I got to make sure my kid is
Yeah.
ready for this. It took a long time of us doing sleepovers and making sure the girls were okay. Like, it was almost like I was looking for any reason, like, and they just weren't there. It was crazy. Like,
Yeah.
how could I find something so good,
Mhm.
And I think if you've listened to our last podcast, I think we touched a little bit on that. I was beside myself. We still think about and look back and laugh and we're like, "Oh my gosh."
I do think it's more than just like non-committal because you had a kid that you need to be
Yeah.
worried about. And we all
Yeah.
been there where we were
Mhm.
in a relationship that felt great and then all of a sudden it didn't. And how
Yeah.
devastating would that be for your child? So I just want to give you credit for taking
Thank you.
that time for her and for yourself. I'm sure there were other things going on, but it is important when you have a child to remember it's not just about what's going to make you feel good anymore.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, when I got married the first time, it was supposed to be forever.
Mm,
You go in that first.
right.
For a lot of us today, we go in and we're like, we're never getting divorced. And then for me, I was the one who pulled the eject.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not a healthy place. And so I was the one who did it. So coming from that place, I was scared to start something where I would do that again, like where I would have to leave or have to make a decision. I didn't want to get married. And I made that very clear for a very long time in our relationship where I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to ruin this with a title. I was so scared that if we got married, that was it. That was when things would turn and things would go wrong. So
Yeah.
it took
Yeah. It
it took
didn't.
it took 6 years
Yeah.
and also took the decision to try to have kids again.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I need healthcare because healthcare is really expensive. And I guess we could try again. And you know what? Let's just do it. We didn't tell anybody. We just went to the beach.
Oh,
We hired someone and we had this, like, I hate to say Jim and Pam from The Office kind of little, like,
yeah.
sunset wedding with just the three of us and God,
Mm.
at the beach. And we're like, oh, we'll just do we'll have a big wedding next year. We won't tell anybody. And then COVID happened.
Oh,
So we were married in 2019. COVID happened and we had to come clean. And
by the way.
whoops, we still haven't. And now we have two kids.
Yeah,
So it's like, well, we'll do it maybe our 10th anniversary, wedding anniversary.
I love that.
So I finally was like, you know what? I'm done. We're not trying again. We're not even going to entertain it. So I'm gonna track my cycles. We're not doing this. At this point, he was like, okay, this is weird. Like, we need to go see doctors to make sure we're healthy, because if you ever change your
Right.
mind and we decide when you're 40
Mhm.
you need that baby, let's be prepared. So we ended up going to he went to his doctor, I went to mine. They wanted to run all these tests on me, and they're like, okay, so this is secondary infertility, because you had already had a very successful pregnancy,
Mhm.
your very first, and you were on birth control. So that tells us,
Right.
you know,
Proof of
you're
concept. We know it can.
yeah, you're and your daughter's 5 years old, so that's really the odds of something happening within inside of your body are not that high right now.
Mhm.
So the doctor looked at me and he's like, you know what, you need to go have your husband go get checked out.
Mm.
So he went to his doctor, and we found out that he had a zero count.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're like, hold on a second. Like, what? Wait, what?
Right.
So my husband, and I do have his permission to share this part of our story because it's very important, is on, it has TRT, like he has a hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
He's on testosterone. He had been injured overseas in Iraq,
Mm.
and it did something with his pituitary, and his body stopped producing testosterone for him.
Mm.
So, he had to take that testosterone therapy. What they didn't tell him is that eventually that would make him go sterile
Wow.
when he had it. So at 26 years old, he's having to take injections because his body's not doing what it's supposed to. And no one thought to mention, hey, you're going to be sterile while you're on this medicine.
Wow.
So we find this out, and I'm like, okay, okay. Like, I brought that information back to my doctor, and my doctor's like, so what it sounds like happened is you had basically a miracle.
Mhm.
The fact that you were even getting pregnant is a miracle. It just takes one.
Yep.
And unfortunately, with the hormone replacement therapy, the sperm can be misshapen or
Abnormal.
yeah, abnormal. I can't think of the word right now,
Right.
brain mom fog. But yeah, they're not healthy,
Mhm.
viable. So he's like, it doesn't matter what you're gonna do, if that's a big part of it, it might not happen. I was like, okay, so what can we do in the event? And he's like, well, you could do IVF, you can do IUI. Yeah, I'm not even
Mm.
ready. I'm not even worried about it. After hearing that, his doctor was like, hey, let's wait 3 months, right?
Mhm.
We're going to wait 3 months. I want you to stop taking your shots,
Mm.
which was horrible for him
Yeah.
because not having a man needs testosterone
Mhm.
in his body. And it comes with weight gain. It comes with mood swings. It comes with, they become a little more estrogen dominant, and it really messes with their psyche. And it's really rough. So the doctor tells him to wait. And then, like, if you ever want to conceive kids, he'll probably have to not be on his shots. So during this 3 month waiting trial, we had two major losses in our family. My grandfather died, and then 3 weeks later to the day, his grandfather died.
Oh.
My grandfather, it was unexpected. His grandfather, it was within 2 months of knowing something was wrong, he was
Mm.
gone. During this time, we're going up to Oregon where his grandfather lived. We were there for a while visiting before, and then my husband had to dip out, and we came back. He had to go back, and he made it there in time. And then my grandfather, on the day his grandfather died, I called my grandmother, who's in Florida. And a couple of weeks had gone by, which is not, it wasn't out of the ordinary for our relationship. I call my grandmother, and it's like, she didn't recognize me. And I was like, oh, are you okay, Granny, what's wrong? And she's like, Papa died. And I was like, when? Like, when did this happen? And she said 3 weeks ago. And like, I just felt like our whole
Right.
entire world within two phone calls
Yep.
had completely just
Yeah.
crumbled. Like, oh my gosh. And my grandmother was so out of it that she was a little older. Like, technology was so
Yeah.
foreign to her that she just reclused. And she didn't want to bug me to tell me the bad news while Brian's
Yep.
grandfather was going through it, and she was trying to preserve me. So then that turned into pickup, and here we are
Yep.
off to Florida and out there for 2 weeks and trying to help manage that. So it was crazy. It was a crazy time in our life, and we were grieving. And so after the 2 weeks are up, we finally get home. And the day after, I was a little sick on that trip, and I couldn't understand like what's going on, like my gallbladder,
Yeah.
because I had gallbladder issues.
Oh,
While we were on that trip, right before we left, he's like, "Do you think you could be pregnant?" And I'm like, "Don't play with
don't.
me.
We're not doing this again.
Don't. I know where you sleep.
Yeah.
Like, no." And he's like, "I don't know why, but I just have this weird feeling. And we fly back home. The next day, I take a pregnancy test, and it's just immediately like positive.
Ooh.
And I'm like in shock,
Yeah.
just literally staring at
Yeah.
this test, like, oh my gosh, like, okay, here we go again.
Buckle up. Yeah.
So we kept it hush. We didn't say anything. And my girls at this time were bullying me to like have a brother or sister for them. It was just a constant, when are you going to have one? When are you going to have one? So it was just this weird feeling of like, they knew
Yeah.
intuitively, like, are you feeling okay? Because I got sick really early. I'd be sitting at the dinner table and I'd be like, "Brr," you know,
Mhm. Did you have
um,
symptoms with your other losses? Or was it
um, So, with the first one, not until right before I lost, I
Mhm.
was getting a little bit of dizzy and nausea. So, with my daughter, I had nothing. I had maybe 2 days of morning sickness the entire pregnancy. I could have skipped fields, skipping in fields of daisies, like, could have been professionally
Yeah.
pregnant. It was just the most beautiful thing in my life. And then with the others, it was like I would start getting a little dizzy, but I don't know if that's coincidental because I'm a dizzy person as it is.
Sure.
So,
So they didn't
um,
necessarily recognize it from like, "Ooh,
no.
here we go again." It's just like, these are
No,
the
it was like
classic
this.
signs.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and for them, I think they were, like, more intuitive of,
Mhm.
like, something's up because I'm a very open book mom, and I can't mislead my children very well,
Sure.
like, I'm a very honest,
Yeah.
like, "Nope, this is how it is, this is life."
Mhm.
So they had kind of like an inkling of something was off, and then I was getting sick. I made my favorite meal, chicken parm, and we get to the table, and I take 2 bites, and I lose it. Like, "Oh my god, can't do this." They're enjoying it. My husband's one of his favorites, so he was like, "Oh my god." Lost it. I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go lay down. I think I have a flu. That's what it is. It's a
Yeah.
flu." And then, I know what it is.
And how
And,
old were they? Like 9 and 10, something like that?
5 and 7.
5 and 7. Okay.
5 and
Okay,
7.
so the
So they were 5 and
seven-year-old
7.
would know probably more than the 5-year-old, but still.
But no, that 5-year-old's very intuitive. She's like, "Are you pregnant? Are you gonna have a baby?" And I'm like, "Why are you asking me that?" "You're getting a little fat." "Okay, thank
Thank
you."
you.
That's weird to say I'm bloated, okay?
Yeah, right.
At this point, I'm throwing away food all the like, on a daily
Yeah.
basis. And then I get to the point where I am so sick, I cannot move. I was diagnosed with hyperemesis. I was losing weight rapidly. The only thing that I could keep down was Dr. Pepper over crushed ice, maybe once a day if I was lucky, having to get IVs. But all during that, I remember at one point thinking something's wrong,
Yeah.
having this feeling like something's not right. Something's wrong. This is a mistake. That was like a recurring thing that I would feel. Like I remember one time my husband and I got one of our very few fights where I was just an emotional basket case, and I'm like, this is a mistake. We shouldn't be doing this, non-committal over here. I just thought this was it. This is where most couples go downhill, is right after a baby. So I really had my doubts and my regrets, and this wasn't even supposed to happen. What do you mean? But I should be grateful because we just lost our grandfathers. We didn't tell the girls. We surprised them with a surprise photo shoot where
Oh.
we had got a little like a big sign printed, and we're like, we're doing family photos this year. And the two photographers were in on it, and they turned around, and here we are holding a sign, "You're going to be big
Yeah.
sisters." And it was just, just so magical. It was such a magical day. We were all of us were in tears. They're crying, and I have the whole pictures where I'm showing them the ultrasounds, but the whole time feeling like something's wrong.
Yeah.
And then getting those ultrasounds and seeing them and like, and they're like, "Where's the head and where's this?" And by this time I'm about 10 weeks,
Mhm.
or no, was I? No, I was 12 weeks. That's right, because we were waiting to make sure I got past that 12-week point.
Yeah, and it's
But my
interesting too because, like, sorry to interrupt you, but pregnancy after loss,
Yeah.
you are like, always are gonna think something doesn't feel right
Yeah,
and something's wrong and
right.
something's gonna go south. So, like, is this intuition? Is this really something, or is this just my anxiety?
Right. And within that there were a few times where I had gone to the hospital because I was so dehydrated,
Mm,
like throwing up, like
yeah.
couldn't get off the bathroom floor. And every time I would go, I'm like, something's wrong, something's not right. I would tell them this every time. Something's not right. Can you check to make sure the baby's okay?
Mhm.
And again, this is the very early stages, 6 to 10 weeks before they put me on the infusions, of course. And they check and they're like, everything's okay. The heartbeat's great. Yeah, look, no, look, healthy baby. It's moving around. Like, and I remember thinking, like, it was like at a 10 week, at the 10-week scan, I'm like, something's weird.
Mhm.
Like, this ultrasound doesn't look like my last one. And when I inquired about it, I had to have a whole OB transfer because I was driving too far,
Mm.
so I got a closer OB. It was their 10-week scan that I just didn't feel right.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh, it's nothing. Sometimes they're a little crazy. Sometimes you'll do it today and it'll be off, and then in 2 days it'll be a completely different scan. You're just having anxiety from your prior losses. Try to take it easy, take a rest." So, okay, I'm telling myself, yeah, this is me. I'm just having doomsday, and I'm just waiting for that other shoe to drop. I need to let it go. It's not. This isn't going to happen. So we do this great big reveal. And my daughters are just over the moon, elated. We're happy. We tell everybody in the family, and we kind of got mixed, like, because we weren't married. His family's very traditional and old
Sure.
school. And we're like, okay, cool. Well, we're excited. So,
Right.
this is the way we want to live our life. When I got the pictures back a week later, at this point, I'm 13 weeks. And I'm like, I'm going to hold off on posting those. I don't know. Something with
Yeah.
like inside was like, yeah, just hold off, right? Again, here I am thinking something's going to go wrong. So when I went back to my doctor and they're like, okay, what's your decision? Are we going to put you in the next room? And I'm like, no, no, no. I think I'm going to carry to term. You don't want to do that. That's such a risk to your health. That's
Yeah.
this, that's a, It was just like this doomsday
Yeah.
because it was inconvenient. And I remember looking at the lady like, no, I want to donate organs. Well, okay, you know what? My One of my really good friends has runs the organ donation place in town, and I'll give him a call. And she leaves the room. She's like, yeah, sorry. He said that they can't do it because these babies are generally too small and yada yada, all these reasons of why not, right? Nobody was telling me. And I'm like, okay, fine. At this point, I had to follow up. I went to my regular OB, and then I went to my perinatologist. And my regular OB, I ended up that following month, like just missed an appointment. I had the flu. They never called me. They never checked up on me. I didn't do what they wanted me to do. And again, this is just how I feel. So they completely ignored me.
Mhm.
So I marched into my perinatologist and I'm like, this is what I'm doing. If you don't respect it, that's fine. I'll have the baby at home. I don't care.
Right.
You know. So either you become my OB, I had to be my own
Yeah.
advocate and kind of bully this other doctor. Um, Either you become my OB, or I'll do this on my own. I'll hire a midwife. And at that point, she's like, you know what? That's fine. Great. If that's what you want to do, I support you 100%.
Nice.
I have a friend that, in fact, works at that very same company. So she got me in touch, got me in touch with the hospice people. Had to have hospice involved
Mhm.
because whenever there's a death,
Mhm.
no matter the case, there's a homicide investigation, and um, so to avoid all that, you get hospice involved, so that way all those legalities don't have to
I'm
follow.
sure that was helpful
Um,
too.
right,
Yeah.
and then we were set up with counseling, and all this time, like It was really rough for us. Not only we lost two grandfathers, we lost a baby. Our daughters were
Yeah.
just completely devastated. Family did not agree that I was carrying this pregnancy to term. They thought we were
Right.
just causing unneeded trauma to our daughters.
Sure.
And whereas we spun it with them like, let's make memories, let's try to make the best of us, let's give him the most unconditional love we could possibly give him on his little short time on earth. I'm not going to make that decision. It's up to him and God, or what,
Mhm.
the universe, whatever you believe. We're not particularly religious.
Sure.
um, so for us in our home, it was an okay thing. Like, it was making the best
Yeah.
out of the scenario. But for a lot of people around us, they did not agree, and they made it known, and it didn't help.
Mhm.
And at that point, we felt abandoned. We felt alone. And already you really feel alone, especially if you've never met anybody who's had gone through this or lost a baby. Luckily, when I did put my post out, and I put on Facebook at the time, a girlfriend of mine that I had worked with 10 years ago reached out and was like, you know what? I lost a baby to the same diagnosis 2 years ago. So we had an unexpected friend. They were so gracious, like checking in on us. But it was hard, so emotionally on so many different levels. And with the family, I understand. I get the wanting to protect and
Yeah.
everything. But at the same time, my thing was, you guys can go home and sleep with yourselves at night. You get to tuck yourselves in your bed and rest your head on your pillow. And maybe the thought of our son will come across your mind. Maybe it won't, but I promise you, it will come across ours every single
Right.
night. And we have to do what's right for us.
Right. And it is the most personal of all decisions. I mean, you can't no there's no right or wrong decision. It's what's best for
Right.
you and what you feel in your heart is the right way to go, and both decisions are correct.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
And for my girlfriend, she made the decision to be induced.
Right.
She found out after her anatomy scan, and it was very.
Yeah.
We both respected each other's
Yeah.
decisions.
You
Yeah,
just see the difficulty in both of it because it's just not gonna be easy no matter what.
no matter
Right.
no matter what. And losing a child, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't think one's bigger than the other,
Yeah.
but then I do. When I meet someone's like, I lost a grown child, I don't know how you could have lost a baby. And I'm like, I don't know how you could have lost a grown
Sure.
child when there's a personality and love and character and memories
Mhm.
attached. Like, I think that's the ultimate loss, is losing a living child,
Mhm.
and it's just the appreciation for loss,
Mhm.
parental loss,
Mhm.
is something to be appreciated, um,
Yeah.
because it's hard, no matter what. Every month, I'm going in, I'm having multiple scans. We found out he had a hole in his heart, because with anencephaly, there are other comorbidities that occur. There's a type of dwarfism that happens with them, the hole in the heart, very, very common. The organs outside of the body, that happens as
Mhm.
well. Just things not developing, or at any point, his heart could have stopped. He could have passed away in utero. So I get all the way to the end of my pregnancy. We go in like, okay, well, let's induce you. A couple days before his due date, it was the end of April. I go in there. I'm in the hospital. They're like, this could take a couple days, because at this point, his brain's not making those chemical
Mm.
signals and hormones to tell your body it's time to go into labor. I had to have the Cervidil, which is a
Mhm.
cervical dilator. There was another medication that they gave me too. It was very invasive, and talks of the Foley bulb, where they manually dilate
Right.
you. And I only say this, I'm sorry, not to give TMI, but to any other moms that might be going through
Yeah.
a similar situation where you are induced out of a medical necessity. Because again, no one talked about this. No one, I didn't know what to expect. It wasn't like, I mean, I knew from my groups, but I feel like these are things that should have been common knowledge. I only got up to 4 centimeters. And I remember at one point looking at my doctor, and I'm like, is this stuff supposed to make you feel like you're having a cramp nonstop? I'm like, I feel like I've been stuck in a contraction for the last 4 hours. At this point, they freak out because that does happen and it can cause your uterus to rupture. And then it's just
Yeah.
not good, not good.
Right.
This whole time, I'm not taking medication. I was trying to be as little medication as possible. I had a doula with me who was doing the whole like shebang thing with the oils
Yep.
and the aromatherapy, which oh my god, never in a million years believed that until she put that basil on my stomach. It smelled like pizza and I was cramping. So they ended up sending me home because I was in fact having a tetanic contraction where and they read my little
Yeah.
contractions and I guess my monitor was a little wonky and it wasn't picking that up like it the baseline was picking it up from the top of that contraction and they didn't realize like oh my gosh, let's give it a week or two because at this point I'm about 40 weeks and they're like well we have a little wiggle room so let's come back in about 2 weeks and if this happens again we'll do the c-section. Come home, here I am like here we go again because leading up to it, it was just like holding our breath like
Mhm.
okay, is he gonna make it, packing the bags, making sure we better have outfits, should we get a car seat, what should we do, and we kind of made these decisions of like well we'll meet that when we get to that point, then we'll make a
Yeah, you
decision.
can always
We're
buy
not
a
going to be
car
like,
seat. You can always do all those
yeah,
things.
yeah. It was like, we'll go get a car seat. We'll go get a crib. We'll
Yep.
get whatever. My hospice worker was like, don't worry about that. We got you covered. I'll personally go. And we had a lot of people in our corner. We had the organ donation people right there ready to go. We made a lot of friends with the nurses. So when it was time again, those nurses requested to be on my case with my permission. So 2 weeks fly by. Had to go through the whole goodbye things again. And we get all of the nurses. So it's the same staff minus one nurse, but she came in and checked on us when she could. And we had this really amazing nurse who's like, oh my gosh, in my 25 years, I've seen one, or 28, she was 28 years. 28 years, she saw one baby like this. And there was a woman across the hall at the very same time having a baby with the same diagnosis
Wow.
in this hospital. And she's like, the occurrence of this happening, she's like, it's alarming. I've personally, this will be my, between the two of you, will be my third baby I'm helping attend delivery to, but this is happening a lot. We're like, oh my gosh, like,
Mm.
yeah, that's what I've been reading. Like, there should be more awareness on this. We ended up finally, my body started to progress, and it was about midnight. I got up to about 7 centimeters. After about 2.5 days, I finally accepted an epidural. I didn't want to, but they thought it would help along. And then
Sure.
they're like, "Well, if at this point you need a C-section, this baby has to come out in the next couple days, so it'll just help with
Yeah,
everything.
right.
We'll put you out if we need to." They come in the room, and I'm like, "I'm feeling a lot of really like a lot of pressure, happen." And they're like, "Well, the baby's having trouble descending." So without the baby having the rounded portion of his head, it's just flat. So, try to push a square through a round hole. There's friction and it
Yeah.
doesn't work. So they're like, we want to pop your waters. So they did that. And they're like, let us know. We'll be watching the monitors. Within 10 minutes, it was like go time. I remember telling my doula, I'm like, um, I feel something. I feel something. Right. I went from 7 to 10 centimeters
Mhm.
in literally less than 15 minutes because it helped bring the
Mhm.
baby down. The delivery was really difficult. Um, he it I ended up getting a very severe tear because again, he got stuck. He got the shoulder dystocia, one of the
Mhm.
things that I was extremely worried about. He got wedged between my tailbone and my pubic bone, and the doctor had to manually
Mm.
move him
Mhm.
in that process. Um, Tore down on top of the episiotomy. Again, one of the things that I wish somebody would have told me could have happened because maybe I would have pressed a little harder for that C-section.
Thank you for joining me for the bonus episode. I hope you learned something in this episode, and I hope you found Shay's story as inspirational and selfless as I did.